Welcome to Raising Our Voices. Today we're talking about disability in sport. In the studio, we have 3 times Paralympic wheelchair racer Lachlan Jones, thrower and CP football player Nelson Gray, and myself, and I'm a seated thrower. Lachlan, how did you find out about disability sport?
Was through my dad, actually, many moons ago. So yeah. And my sister, she played basketball when she was young, playing for the Tadpoles, and she played overseas in America and that. And then Mum played basketball, so in the Veterans League. So and Dad played football. So it was only, I thought if you can't beat them, join them.
So you ended up being a wheelchair racer?
Correct. Well, actually, no, I'll rewind. I did do Special Olympic swimming, and then I had brain injury and intellectual disability and that. So and then Dad went to what was then Victorian Wheelchair Sports Victoria, and then he looked around, and I don't know whether you've heard of a person called Brian McNichol. Used to be a powerlifter. He 7-time Paralympian. And yeah, when I did powerlifting for 5 minutes, but certain person put a stop to that, and then I ended up doing track.
Nelson, how about you? How did you find out about disability sport?
So there's a different story behind the two sports. For CP football, I used to get a lot of treatment at the Monash Children's Hospital, and my mum saw a poster up on their walls in the area, and I don't know, we just got in contact with the number on the poster, and we went from there to go to the first training session, and I've gone on from there. I was part of their development squad from about 2009 to 2014. Then I was asked to compete with the state 7-a-side football team, and from there it's been great. In terms of getting into shot put and athletics, it was mainly really my sports teacher that told me. He called me into my office one day, and the nervous kid I was when I was about 14 years old, I thought it was, I was in trouble or something like that. But then he told me, look, there is this athletes with a disability category out there, and I think you'd be really good. Started off with sprinting, but then he said, I think you'd be better doing shot, and I didn't think I was very strong, to be honest. And then I went through School Sports Victoria's competition through their athletes with a disability category. I was given a pamphlet saying you have qualified for the Victorian All Schools, and that's where I met my current coach today, John Eden.
I went through school as a swimmer, but at that time I don't think there were any athletes with a disability events within school sport, and I'd never actually heard of disability sport until I heard something on the radio in 1996. Was something about Priya Cooper winning some medals in swimming at the Paralympics. by then I had long retired because as a teenager I was sick of coming last. As I'm now throwing, I actually became involved in athletics as an official before I was actively competing. But I saw people throwing and figured I could do it. And now I'm a current Australian champion. I've got a question from the audience. Nelson, what's CP football?
CP football is a form of soccer for people with cerebral palsy to compete on, whether it's they've got now a local stage. Football Federation Victoria have what they call an All Abilities League, or they've got national seven-a-side football championships, and it's just really for people with cerebral palsy to get out there and have a go at the sport they can have a passion for.
How does it differ from regular soccer?
From regular soccer, it's played on a smaller pitch with smaller goals. Instead of 11-a-side, it is 7-a-side, and we have no offside rule.
Let's talk about coaching and support. Nelson and I actually have the same athletics coach, but Lachlan, I think that you were coached by your father. Is that right?
Correct. How'd you know that?
Well, you told me.
Oh, that's right.
I've also read your father's book.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's correct. To cut a long story short, we couldn't. Well, he's claiming that because of my behaviour and that nobody would want to coach me, which is absolute rubbish. And then nobody else knew about disabilities like he did, and then so he virtually was not football, athletics coach, father, Carol, rolled into one, 57 Heinz variety. So he had to get classified as a coach. So he had to do the courses to do, I don't know what they require now, but this is going back a few years ago now. So he could go with me as a support person and as a trainer as well. But it wasn't all like you said about John Eden. Like, we did have our moments, but you're lucky with John Eden. You could go to John Eden, have your training session in Rackhoff, where when me and Mum and Dad and my sister lived together, was 24/7. So, pretty full on.
Yeah, I'm sort of pretty glad that I don't have to spend 24 hours a day with my athletics coach. How about you?
Yeah, well, aren't you lucky?
Obviously, competing has a cost. Training has a cost. If you are an athlete with a disability, sometimes the costs are even higher than for athletes who don't have a disability. I don't know that many people realise how expensive some of the equipment is.
What are we talking about? Throws or?
Well, for example, your track chair.
Track chair, that's it's up in the thousands over. Look, it's about just as much as a real good lightweight road bike or track bike for like like racing, road racing, or velodrome or anything like that. It's got carbon fibre in that, so we had to get sponsors from Bike Shop, and then after the Paralympics, we got a sponsorship called in '97 from a company called Zeal Consulting. So that helped us, kicked us along for quite a while because of accommodation, his airfare, mine. Well, I was already catered for, but he had to pay his own way, so it was pretty much like for airfares and stuff and that.
I'm actually when I started training for throws, I actually borrowed a frame belonging to another athlete, and right from the beginning, John said, "We'll get you your own frame. We'll get you your own frame." I ended up getting my own frame. I've actually inherited it off another athlete who was in Canberra, but has now stopped throwing. And we cut down the throwing frame of this other athlete so it would fit me.
What do you mean cut it down?
It was set up for another athlete.
Oh, yeah, because I know with, well, it's the same with athletes' chairs. You've got to have them fitted to the person. You can't just, it's not like say my body, like, you can't have another size, like, just, like, you can't just go into, otherwise they're too small or they're too big, or you've got to really be specific and tailor the racing chair and the dimensions and that. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you had to do that.
And Nelson, what sort of costs have you had for training and competing?
Well, for me, there's not much equipment really involved. The only equipment I really use is my AFO, or also known as an ankle foot orthotic, which basically helps me with my walking style and trying to help me walk straight, and helping also with my balance. Depending on the style, the one that I've got at the moment, it could cost $1,000 in Australian dollars. In terms of flights and everything to get to competitions, maybe interstate, I don't have much experience in that yet because.
Well, you can come to me if you need any advice, because I've been there, done that. Yeah. Or John Eden, because we've done that.
I mean, most of the costs involved with flying interstate at the moment is paid from my mum, and I am internally grateful for her putting up with all those costs and everything. Have
you thought about applying for sponsorship?
Yes, I have thought about applying for sponsorship, to be honest.
I'd really, really consider you do that, because, again, with sponsorship, you don't have to worry about actually, you don't have to worry about, like, your mum and I know, I don't know her from above, but I'm only an outsider looking in. Like, you can't expect her to be giving you handouts, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I know that, and it's it's a process about, I am trying to, I'm only just turned 18, so,
yeah, well, I was in your situation I know where you're coming from.
It's just at the moment I'm not really looking for work because I have got year 12 and it is so busy on top of all the sport that I do at the moment.
Right.
It's probably a good time to talk about the time commitment of training and competing. And the challenges of juggling different commitments as well for those of us who are studying or working as well as trying to compete in our sport.
Yeah, and sport does take up quite a bit of time when you do two sports like myself. I'll go to Darebin for soccer from about 10 till 12 in the morning on a Saturday, and then I'll go to training down in Cranbourne from 9 a.m. till about maybe 11.
And then go to referee a soccer game.
Yes, I also am a referee for Football Federation Victoria, so that does take up quite a bit of my time, but it is worth it at the moment because it does earn me a little bit of money on the side, which is trying to address the issue of, having some money.
And also to add the... Look, it actually does give you that money, costs, against those things, like the petrol, and because you can't, the service station attendant's not going to, your small's not going to pay for the petrol, is it?
Yeah, so I'm not driving yet at the moment.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. It is a very difficult situation.
So how do you get to all these events and that? How do you...
Well, yesterday when Nelson and I were going to gym together, I took public transport to South Yarra Station, and Nelson presumably also took public transport to South Yarra Station.
Yep, and we caught the train from South Yarra to Dandenong.
And then the other train from Dandenong to Hallam.
Because we originally thought that buses were replacing trains, but then found out later
that it was only doing it at random selected periods. Yes, getting to some of these places on public transport because you do not drive, either because you haven't got your license yet, or in my case, I can't get a license for medical reasons.
Yeah, same.
Is challenging.
Yeah.
What about, say, for you and I, for medical reasons for you, have you got a taxi card? Are you eligible for that?
Yes, I've got a taxi card.
Oh,
I'm still not going to take a taxi from my house to Cranbourne East. It would still cost, even with the taxi card, it would cost a very large amount of money.
Right.
Yeah.
What about you, Nelson? Would you be eligible, although you've got CP, would you be eligible?
I personally don't think so, and I'm trying to address the issue of travel anyway. For a while, about last year, when I actually got the learner's permit after all the difficulties going through Vic Roads about my peripheral vision, I finally got it. They said you need to do some of your 120 hours with a driving instructor in a dual control car until that driving instructor feels that you're confident enough to do it with, one of your parents. And, in situations like that, it does become very costly because depending on the driving instructor, I know for my driving instructor I had for a while, he was costing $80 for an hour lesson, which is very expensive.
So, but you can't... how much cheaper do you expect?
Well, I'm not sure how much cheap. Yeah, it's not an issue of cheapness. It's just it's difficult on top of all the sport costs and everything to come up with that kind of money.
Hopefully, the NDIS will pay for some of it.
Well, that's what I'm also hoping, that the NDIS will hopefully help me with that once it actually fully rolls out in my area, which it probably won't until about April next year.
It won't until next duck opening.
But yeah, and on top of all that, there's the costs for the modifications that I need to my car, which is not very much. It is a spinner knob, and it's almost like a metal rod that you cross over, so you can use the indicator that's on the right side with your left hand.
Yep. Oh, well.
You're listening to Raising Our Voices on 3CR. Today, we're talking about sport and opportunities for people with a disability. As I said before, I went through school not knowing that disability sport existed. And I think there are now a lot more opportunities than there used to be for young people with a disability to get involved in sport. I was, for example, an official on the very first championship for athletes with a disability within little athletics. That was just this year.
Yeah, well, there's increasing opportunities for people with disabilities to get involved. I think the issue is that there's probably not enough promotion around these categories for people with disabilities. Like, the only reason that I found out about athletics for people with disability, and I'm, with John today training, for national championships and everything, is because of my sports teacher taking the initiative to do some research and look around.
I think it's really useful that I'm doing some coaching in schools, because I'm finding when I'm coaching and when I'm officiating a school sports event, and we have somebody in the mainstream school who is a wheelchair user, and I can point them towards disability sport if they're interested. Or I recently was doing some coaching at a primary school in the northern suburbs, and just in the couple of grades that I worked with, I identified 2 athletes with a disability, one of whom had competed in their school sports the year before, but neither he nor his school knew that he was able to compete at districts and regions and potentially state. His school now has information about how to get him classified, so he'll hopefully be able to progress. If there is somebody listening today who either has a disability or knows somebody with a disability, and they're interested in getting involved in sport, what would you suggest that they do?
Well, it really depends on, which sport you want to get into. Most national organisations for each sport will have information on it, but, I think until, there's enough promotion around it, people really need to take the initiative to go researching and find out if there is something like this out there, and generally there will be, because the opportunities for people with disabilities is increasing.
Hey, there's even AFL Wheelchair League now.
Yes, that is very good. That yeah, I don't play AFL myself, but
neither do I, but it's Victoria, it's a popular sport, and there is now a wheelchair league.
Yeah.
Lachlan, if there is somebody listening who wants to be involved in sport and has a disability, what suggestions would you make?
They can ring. Well, I've got the name of it. Oh, they've changed their name now.
Disability Sport and Recreation?
Yep, correct. They could ring them. Or, I don't know whether VIS would be appropriate, but disability sport and recreation would be their best bet.
Yeah, and now that I think about it, they're a community organisation who looks at trying to get people involved in sport, and that was actually how I got involved in CP football in the first place. If it wasn't for DSR, then I wouldn't be the person I am, and yeah.
I'm just looking up the number for Disability Sport and Recreation now. You can call Disability Sport and Recreation on 9473 0133, and they'll put you in touch with different sporting opportunities. They have an equipment library if you're wanting to try sports with equipment. They do camps for kids and all sorts of things.
Yeah, they also have their kids' sports program, which they go to either Monash or the Royal Children's Hospital.
By now, you've been listening to Raising Our Voices. Next up,
we have Complay Tada by Lable.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to a 3CR podcast produced in the studios of independent community radio station 3CR in Melbourne, Australia. For more information, go to allthews.3cr.org.au.